Hello and welcome to 30 Days of Doodles. I'm super excited that you're here and I cannot wait to get into this. So the idea is that we'll be doing 3 different doodles every day for 30 days for a total of 90 doodles. And all you need for this is a pencil, an eraser, and a black pen, maybe 2. And then you can snag my workbook that you're seeing here on my blog post, which is listed down in the description. If you need to pause the video so you can go get it, it's completely free. And then come back and we'll jump right in with day 1. So to start day 1, we are doing some technology doodles. We will start with our iPhone. So first, grab your pencil and we are going to start by drawing a rectangle, a vertical rectangle shape, similarly to the size of an iPhone, or at least your best estimate. And then the next step is going to be to round out our corners. We're not going to start with anything that's rounded out or anything like that. We're just starting with the most basic shapes, and that's going to be the general idea for this entire series, is that we're breaking things down into very basic shapes, learning to recognize those shapes, and then doodling with them. So the next step I did here was I took some diagonal lines from the bottom left hand corner and the top right hand corner, and those diagonal lines are just angled slightly up and to the left. And then I am creating almost like a drop shadow behind the iPhone to give it some depth. And then I drew another rectangle on the inside for this screen. This is where we'll pick up our pen and we'll go in and we'll trace the lines that we've already drawn. So I'm going to start with that outside line of our iPhone, and then we'll outline that outer portion and then the inner screen before we go in and add the fine details. As the series goes on, you'll see that I periodically erase in the middle of doodling, and that's just to get rid of all those beginning guidelines that we draw, just so that we have a clean slate to add any details or anything. So now I'm going in with my finer point pen, which is the extra small from Faber-Castell, and I'm adding the buttons that you would find on an iPhone. So we'll draw the volume button, the power button, the front-facing camera, and then if you're like me and you have the old school iPhone, you have the little round button at the bottom. And finally, I'm going to add in those bottom shortcut buttons and some along the top just to give it that real iPhone feel. And I'm sorry, I'm a huge iPhone person. If you prefer to draw Android, please give it your best shot and draw an Android. So now we're going to move on to our second one, which is earbuds. And you may think, what kind of a shape are we going to use to make earbuds? They're not really a shape, they're just this long string thing. But we're gonna start with a Y shape and then we're gonna round it out to make it more organic. So I'm just adding some curved lines along that Y shape, and yours don't have to be identical to mine. You just want them rounded so it looks naturally like a chord and not just like these perfectly straight lines. And then I'm adding tiny ovals on the end and then tiny ovals on the inside of those ovals to give them the earbuds. I also decided to add a little bit of a loop to my cord, and then finally the little aux cable that would go in. Now we'll pick up our black pen and we'll go over all of our lines. So for this, I'm just using the small Faber-Castell Pitt Artist Pen. All of the supplies I use are the same throughout all of these videos, and they're all listed in the description, but honestly, any pen you'll have will work, any pencil, any eraser. You don't have to buy special supplies for this, so just use what you have on hand. So for the little end of the aux cable, I am using that finer point pen, and then I'm also going to use it on the earbuds just because I want to add a little black space at the very inside of that to give it that feeling that it has some holes in it and that they are earbuds. So now we will erase our pencil lines before moving on to our last doodle, which is a laptop. So keeping in mind with the shape thing, we're going to start our laptop with 2 very basic rectangles. So the first one is going to be a horizontal rectangle that is a little bit taller, and the second one is going to be a shorter rectangle but still the same length. So the top rectangle is going to be your screen, the bottom rectangle is where your keyboard would be. And the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to refine those shapes, and so I'm going to bring that bottom one out and I'm going to kind of angle it out because it's closer to us in perspective wise, so it would be a little bit wider at the front. And then I added a very, very narrow strip along the bottom for the depth of the keyboard, and then I added a rectangle on the inside of the top rectangle for the screen and a rectangle on that middle rectangle for the keyboard. So again, I like to just kind of go through this in steps with pens and pencil. So here I'm going to go in with my pen and I'm going to outline all the major outlines in this before moving on to those finer details. If at any time you feel like you would prefer to use a ruler during these doodles, please do so. This is totally up to you. I didn't want to use a ruler because I wanted to show you that you can do this with as few tools as possible and that you don't need a ruler to make straight lines. You just need to take your time, but if you still feel more comfortable drawing a straight line with a ruler, please feel free to pick one up and you can pause the video and then you can return to it once you have all of your straight lines drawn with your ruler. So now that I am done outlining all those components that we already outlined, I will erase my pencil lines just to give us a nice clean shape to work with when we add our fine details. The remaining details I want to add are the keys on the keyboard, so I'm just going to follow the outside lines of that rectangle that we're drawing within. So they're slightly angled but not a ton, and I only went about 3 on each side because on the very bottom row of a keyboard you have a space bar. And even though it's just a doodle, I did want to include that in this. So I have a couple rows of full keys, and then that middle row only has like 2 rows of little keys and the space bar. And then I added this little rectangular shape on that very narrow bottom strip as like the closure. And then I added the front facing webcam and some little lines for the sheen. So guys, that wraps up day 1. Be sure to be back here tomorrow at 8 a.m. The next video will be posted. And remember that you can share your doodles with me on Instagram with the hashtag 30 days of doodles with TPP and tag me at the Petite Planner. And I will see you guys in tomorrow's video.